Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Zane.
How are you, man?
Very good.
Word up. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You only just brought the concept album of the decade. Don't worry about it. It's called Black Parade.
Right.
And the first single, Welcome to Black Parade. We're going to get to all of that.
Okay.
In the meantime, you didn't muck around.
No.
Back in the studio.
Right back in. I think we had 3 weeks off. I went to Japan. I think the guys went home and rested, and then we met up in New York City and just sifted through about 18 songs. And
You've been riding on the road and stuff like that?
We wrote a lot on the road. We built a studio in the back of the bus on Warped Tour.
Yeah.
So,
it's kind of an intimate place to create.
Yeah, it was. You could only really fit about a couple guys at a time as far as writing.
So you're just using Pro Tools or Logic or something like that?
Yeah.
Give yourself a drum track and then you're writing riffs?
Right. I think we actually had an electronic drum kit jammed in there, so there was like no room.
I want to hear those demos, the Dirty Bitch
Right.
The My Chemical Romance remix.
They're not bad. There's and then we put it into an M box, and and then
took it from there.
So yeah.
Why'd you go to Japan for a holiday? Pretty hectic place.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite countries in the whole world, and we always tour there, but I never get to really see the culture, you know. So I went all over this time.
You're pretty big there. You sell records. You get.
Yeah, we do really. We had a really great slot at Summer Sonic. I think it was right before Muse. And
do you get recognized when you're on holiday at all? People kind of.
Yeah, but you know how they are. They're so respectful.
Yeah,
and then they would come, and take a picture. But they're just so nice.
Unlike us here in Gonzo, we like a little tickle. Right. We like a little oyster. It seems what you really want to achieve right now, and I've seen this with a few bands coming back, and I think it's a very positive step, is you want to take yourselves away from necessarily being an alternative band to being a classic rock band. You know? Yeah,
I mean, even more so, I think, we got that emo label real early on, I think because geographically where we were from, and we've never fit into that.
Also, your heart's on your sleeve, and that seems to be a pretty easy
I think that's why. That's an easy way to kind of tag a band, but, we pulled away, obviously, tremendously far from that. There's no reason you could even put the two words in the same sentence now, but even still, like, it's less alternative. Even we tried to make a classic album.
Yeah, you've done so, and I think every great rock band needs to at least have a crack at a concept album in a loose sense of the word,
right?
Or really, like even Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness is a concept album effectively.
Right.
If you look at it going across both, you name both sides, you look at it that way, even though it's not necessarily telling a complete story.
Right.
You guys have gone 10 steps further than that, and you've created a plot, a story.
And going into this record, the game plan, there was 3 records that really inspired us. It was Queen's Night at the Opera, Pink Floyd's The Wall, and then Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's.
Right.
Those 3 records.
Setting the bar low then.
Yeah, right. But, effectively, I had always seen this record as our melancholy. And the aesthetic's a little borrowed from it as well, as you'll see in the packaging and things like that. So, because I felt the Revenge was like our Siamese. I love the Pumpkins. They're my favorite rock band.
Well, we bonded over this before, and I'm the same. I'm a huge fan of Billy and the entire band through their entire ages. And when I listen to your music at this point, I feel that you have stepped up conceptually, but also sonically in terms of the instruments that you're incorporating. The first time I heard Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, when I heard Tonight, like, it wasn't the same band to me,
Yeah, wow, they dropped strings right away on that record.
Straight in. I mean, off the piano intro, straight into that, and then, of course, into Jelly, and it's just all over. But, from you, same thing with you guys. I mean, you must be aware of the fact that for some of your core fans, you're pushing them to trust you even further.
I think so. Well, the thing about our fans is I think, they're just very smart, and I think they expect this. I think they're going to be very proud of this record. I think they would be disappointed if the record wasn't as over the top as it was. I think they'd just be like, they didn't have what I thought they had. I think.
First single, Welcome to the Black Parade, a title track of sorts, an introduction to the album and what you guys are establishing, and definitely throwing down the template as to what people can expect from the record. You've thrown a lot into the mix.
Right.
By the end of it, you're exhausted from the listen. You want to go around again, but it is like a roller coaster ride in that sense.
It is.
Was it tough to choose that as a first single? Well, once you started working on the record, did you have it clearly mapped out as to how it was going to run?
Well, that was the hardest and longest song to track. It was one of the last songs that came together. Once we heard it in its final, complete version, everybody in the room was like, that's got to be the first one. Yeah,
well, it makes sense, because like I just said before, it very much lays down the idea of what you're trying to say with the Black Parade.
Right.
And it also, like great radio songs that have come before it, I speak from somebody who works on the radio, there's something for everyone to connect to, but it's an ambitious production.
Yes.
And I'm probably going to get crucified by Radiohead fans for saying this, because I'm sure there are elements of both audiences that don't share a passion for your music and theirs. But it is like the Paranoid Android of your era.
Here's the thing, Radiohead had a huge effect on American bands. It had a positive effect and it had a negative effect. We're huge Radiohead fans, you know. I think a lot of American bands interpreted that band wrong, and then they didn't really understand what Radiohead were doing, and then they just became self-indulgent. A lot of these bands, they're like, oh, Radiohead's putting bleeps and whistles and stuff, we're going to do that too. And it ended up not making sense, when the thing about Radiohead is they're writing great songs and just really pushing it. And in a lot of ways, this did feel like our version of the Bends. You know, it doesn't sound like it, but it's a departure. It's bold. So
you're not being boxed in, man. You know, you're not going to sit there and go, we're an American alternative rock band.
Right.
Like your peers Green Day that have gone before you with American Idiot, they came out and said, okay, well, I know that a lot of you expect us to do maybe Dookie again, or something a bit more ska punk, or maybe even Nimrod, you know, but we're going to do something that you could least expect. And it really worked for them.
It really worked. I mean, that's the thing. With any band, I think when you make a new record, if you just really just push very far and dig real deep and make something real sincere, I think it's just going to work.
It's going to travel, yeah.
You got to make something crazy. It'd be so boring. That's what we kept saying. We're like, if we didn't make the record the way it was, it'd be so boring.
How do you feel about your peers right now in the United States? And I'm not asking you to name names, because you're not that kind of show, but overall, when you look at American rock and the standard, and you put yourselves and Green Day and a few other bands out on a limb that are doing something interesting, you know, where do you feel? Like, when you listen to the radio, does it depress you?
Occasionally, I mean, but it did even before Not Okay had hit the radio. Like, you know, I hate anything repetitive, mundane, and just the same song over and over again. That's depressing. You know, I just wish people would just try more things. You know, just make it exciting. You try more things, you'll hit something.
I think you can, and you're not at risk of committing commercial suicide just because you're taking risks.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is a lot of bands, we get into music for the wrong reason and to sell records. If you're doing that, I mean, there's a formula for that, and that's why I get disappointed when I hear the formula on the radio.
Always good to see you, and you know what? Let's talk about Reading, because I know that you had a great time.
I did. Reading is, it's seriously, if I had to pick 5 shows that were my favorite, that would be probably number one or number 2. It sums up the band. I mean, you know, adversity and, you know, stepping into it, not backing down from it, completely fearlessly going on. I mean, if I had gotten a broken nose, I would have kept going.
And respect to the guy, we've said this before, but respect to your man in Panic at the Disco for... He was actually concussed.
Yeah, he actually got knocked out.
And he got up and continued on. I mean, I don't know. I think that in the case of Panic at the Disco, there was always going to be the odd pot shot that got lucky. For you guys, I think a lot of it came down to the slot that you were given. And I think anyone that went on directly after Slayer. But not even necessarily because, and I'm sure there were people out there that were like, great, an opportunity for me to have my mark and have my say with a projectile, which is, you know, go in the Olympics if you've got that kind of aim, because you're wasting your time at Reading. But yeah, I think that, you know, there was a lot of pent-up aggression and energy that came flooding out at Slayer, and I think that you could have put Queens of the Stone Age on after that and it would have kicked off, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were standing right before this, we went on and we heard them chanting